And when the unexpected arrives for you, I would say, know that you're resourced on some deep level to abide within that unexpected moment, even if it's completely shocking. We all came here as very strong souls to up the ante on this earth. That's what we're doing here. That's why we're chatting tonight. That's why I've revealed this in such granular detail. Yeah. Facing the truth is sometimes the hardest thing we'll ever do, and also the most liberating. And as I've said, we do it not just for us, but for the collective. That's how this is all operating. It can't be any other way. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Rebecca Rose, Sirius Blue, inviting you to join me for the 22nd episode in the Bringing Light to the Darkness series. From up here in Alaska to wherever you are, welcome. And if you're new, thanks for being here. If you're returning, good to see you again. So, in my last episode, number 21, digging into all the nuanced information I've gotten about the Greys, it's called My Mother Saw an ET. Thanks for journeying with me through that. That was an epic production. And so is this one. Since mid-December 12/12, I've been metabolizing something kind of shocking that has really changed my life and haven't shared it at all in a public way. This is the first time I've been speaking to it. I did say a bit about it in one of my short videos. I've been enjoying creating those, by the way. Thanks for also those of you who've been enjoying listening. And with the Sasha Stone video, that interview that I posted recently with the two of us, I had alluded to this yet again, but hadn't had needed some time to process all of this. It was changed my life really for the better. So just a note, those of you who are asking for other ways to join me on social media, the Telegram link is what I have, and that's below. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on those platforms. So you'll find me here on Rumble and on Telegram. And let me know where you're listening from. I'm up here in Alaska. I can feel a little bit isolated as much as I love where I am. I love that our global community just continues to become more coherent, cohesive as we journey through these epic times in so many ways. So what I'm about to convey has kind of, I want to say, even supernatural qualities, profoundly altered my life for the better, although it's been a bit harrowing a bit lonely to metabolize all this the last 2 months. Unprecedented, unexpected. And yet at the level of the higher self, I'm sure I invited it in at the same time. We're talking about memory retrieval that came back in a very visceral, embodied way that still shocks me and will shock me as I read through the notes and share them with you guys. Next level. Like next level. This has not happened to this degree in all of my memory retrieval experiences over the years. It has never been like this. So the ante is upped up in my own life. And the stakes in some ways are high. I don't know why I say that, but there's some imperative that this information come forth from me and from the depths of my psyche right now. And I hear that it's very germane to what's happening in the surface realm, with a lot going on around child trafficking. Because I spend so much time attuning to the spiritual planes and less so with the material planes, I am not so familiar with everything that's going on in the news. And I keep it that way for a reason. I'm a blank slate, and I don't know what the F is happening out there in many times and instances. And I understand that's my job. I am here to attune with the other worlds more than anything, and to be your guide through those places where not everyone can go and not everyone needs to go. but many of you are also on that path with me. Thank you so much. So, yeah, so again, going back into the 12, beyond conventional bounds of reality, certainly parts came back to me in ways that are shocking, giving me essentially proof that what I have been through and what I have documented in these videos is real, particularly around child porn, child trafficking, and what I experienced at the hands of my godfather. I'll get into the context of this in a moment. Yeah, very confronting. I think because of what all this is also pointing to is a high-level organization, not just, my godfather taking some pictures of me in a back room, but a high-level crime syndicate connected to the CIA, which is, I'll get into this as we go, but just bookmark that for now. In and of itself, that's a lot to hold, right? That's a lot to hold. And memories returning in such a visceral, graphic way. These are information streams around the child porn abuse in my life and the satanic ritual, the occult abuse in my mother's family that I had walled off and vaulted pretty well. Because when something is, and I've spoken, I'm sure, to this before, when something is involving family, rather than just kind of indistinct personas in the SSP, people I didn't really know, they're just handlers, just handlers. When it's your family, it's totally different. And it can be so much more conducive to states of cognitive dissonance. Like, I don't want to believe this is real, so it's not. So I will just live in denial and dissociation forever. Now, my life and my psyche 2 months ago said, fuck that. You can't live in that condition, in that state anymore. It's truncating your life and it's not helping you. So you have to go into this. And so I was presented with the information that I needed in a way that it could not be denied. Truth, fact, not fiction. Truth, fact, not fiction. That can be life-changing. Do you relate to any of this at all? Let me know in the comments. Yeah. Like I said here in my notes for the video today, now I know the truth and it's changed my life and amplified my mission. These are all thumbs up good things. So, and I've spoken to the topic of Mr. E, we'll just call him by his last name, Eckstein, Eckstein. He came over from Germany in the 1940s with his mom. His father was killed in the war, and I've given quite a lot of backstory on him. Again, he was my handler from the time I was born to the time I was 7, and he had a private plane pilot's license. He had a high clearance with the Air Force, and then was my father's best friend. They both after their military, early years in the military, my father in the Army, Eckstein in Air Force, they were vetted by a company in Nashua, New Hampshire that at the time was called Sanders Associates. In the 80s, it merged, was bought out by Lockheed Martin, and it's all one consortium. Having a breath there with all of that. It was also under my nose and in front of my face for years, and I never could see it. Of course, what do you see when you're a kid? Everything is, all the deviance is normalized, right? So at length, I've spoken to this in the number 9 video of Bringing Light to the Darkness, this series. It was called Strategies of Empire, Children, Sex, and Secret Space, linking all of these topics together with the SSP and the grooming and handling that went on to get me into the SSP. And this is part of that, to be sure. That video was taken down by YouTube and banned. It exists still on Rumble. I will link that below. You can check it out there if you're interested. So, giving a little backstory before I dive into my notes on the 12-12. And bear with me because there's so much light inside of this and so much lesson and learning inside. What happens when we turn towards our wounds? They become wisdom. Our wounds become wisdom when we look toward them. They really do. So both those guys, my father and Eckstein, were aerospace engineers, brilliant minds, working under the auspices of the alphabet agencies who they were subcontracted with. My father, certainly before his death, had mentioned ties with the CIA and NASA. I've mentioned that in my videos. So check out number 9 if you want to and feel inclined. Yeah, and Mr. E. Eckstein, when I was down on the border seeing my father out in his final years, and all of the memories were coming back around space because I had chosen to put myself close to my father, who was seminal in why I ended up in the SSP. You'll know that if you watched through, the 20 plus episodes now in this series. Dad had a major part in it and was a abductee himself and was being handled and mind controlled himself. Um, yeah, so Eckstein moves close to me, like, I mean, close, like within a mile of my house. Moves down to be close to my dad in his final years. If that's not some kind of divine message or backhanded epiphany in my life, this was years ago now, probably 2017 or so, he moved down there. Um, and I paid him a visit. I talked about this in the episode number 9 that I've spoken of and referenced here. I went to visit him unannounced after he'd been in the neighborhood a couple of years and I hadn't heard from him. I wanted to see what my nervous system would do, and I freaked out and dissociated completely because at the time, why am I sharing this now? It's not necessarily relevant to the 1212 information that I'm going to bring forth here. But it was me looking for, is this truth or is this a fucking fiction? I have to know. And so I've been on the trail of wanting to know, needing to know for years. Do my memories serve me? And caught between wanting it to be a lie, but needing to know. Is this really what happened in my family? With the people who were supposed to love me and protect me? That's a hard reckoning. If you have faced that too, I really empathize because it is one of the toughest things you'll ever have to journey into. Because it brings up so many questions about our own worth. Who would do that if we were worthy and lovable? We wouldn't have been abused like that. There's so many distortions in the mind that go on when we have to metabolize these sorts of things and come into this internal reckoning. And as children, what do? We blame ourselves. More on that topic soon. So, oh, yeah. I was programmed to never remember this stuff and certainly to never talk about it. I was drugged, hypnotized, to made compliant for sex. It was filmed. And these men within the deep state were blackmailed. It's the best way to compromise someone working within the auspices of government or elsewhere, film them having sex, deviant sex, perhaps sex in which a child is killed. They own you forever once they've caught you on film like that. There's a much higher orchestration, organization, and nuanced meaning inside of that whole crime syndicate and what was being done. Kids were just players. At the end of the day, it's more about power than sex. Oh, well, let me relay this unforgettable episode, as I have called it in my own personal journey, private notes, since December 12th, 2025, just 2 months ago. And then we can get into what created the perfect storm for all of this to rise up from my psyche unannounced, unbidden, at least consciously unbidden. Yeah. And then how does the subconscious mind work and how can we tap into that for our advantage? We'll go into that. And I also want to, while this is, I'm going to read you some stuff that is pretty gritty, pretty raw, very uncensored, possibly a little triggering, although if you're here and you've watched the channel, it's nothing new particularly. Go into the lighter side. And certainly I have some really good news, something I'm very excited to share, a new opportunity that's connected to all of this and the work I've been doing around this and how it's linked to my mission and having voice in the broader community, beyond the disclosure, beyond the disclosure community. So we'll talk about that too. So, oh my goodness, here we go. I'm gonna have a breath. We have a breath. And as I said in my very first episode, my humble inroad into this whole series, I never knew where it would go. And I said, as I was crying and shaking and sweating that day back in May of 2020, I still lived down in our southern border of the Chihuahuan Desert and right on the border of Mexico, living close to my father. And at that time, Mr. E. Eckstein was still alive, my handler, also an abuser, a photographer, and a killer. I ask you to hold my hand in that first video because I was shaky and I was nervous and I was frightened. And some of that is still with me here today. So I just appreciate you holding space and being with me. And I have a feeling if you're in the bowels of trying to connect the dots in your own life and what happened to you and what's real and what isn't, what's truth and what's a lie, I think this is also relevant. Yeah. So here we go. And because things are so well written in the journals that I keep, very detailed notes on all the things that come in over time, I write pretty much every day. And in this case, it's just so well expressed that it does me right and does the situation right to just read. I'll be reading excerpts of the journal and then giving some commentary as we go. So let me know your questions and comments as we run through this together and kind of journey again through something collectively here. So on the morning of December 12th, this is Friday morning, 2025, I wrote, a life-changing event just occurred. I am trying to metabolize it, make sense of it all without trying too hard. I feel really raw, flayed open and exposed. I feel it completely lost today. I wonder, who am I? What just happened? And where am I? All the parts I've never seen come through with their trauma, shaking and crying, stories finally spoken aloud and wailing. Scary, so scary. Who the fuck am I and what the fuck just happened? Where am I? So we can see this dislocation. I don't know where I am because all the normal signatures of my own identity the night before were just blown wide open and shattered, fragmented. No more control of the conscious construct of identity, right? All gone. I needed this, though, I wrote. Somehow I know it couldn't have been any other way. Was I targeted? Question mark, exclamation point, exclamation point. I felt that night. So this started late on 12/11 and concluded in the wee hours of 12/12. It went on for a couple hours. I felt as if I was being electrocuted internally, unable to control my motor skills or speak coherently. I felt as if I was inhabited by some external force. That in itself was quite frightening, and I don't know entirely the answer to that. Was I being targeted? If so, my team neutralized it and brought it into a delivery of light information, so to say, something that would transform my life, which is very much what has happened in the intervening time since all this emerged from the depths of my psyche. I feel as if I'm hovering above my body. I have a very palpable sense of pain, excruciating pain that is just out of reach. And this has all happened when I've gone up to bed. Yeah. I'm feeling myself starting to get taken into some other realm, right? Somehow I'm not feeling the pain that is in me, but I am deeply aware of it. On some level, I feel as if I'm being torn apart. It was excruciating on some hard to describe, articulate level. I feel spinny and weak in bed. I begin to have hallucinations, or so I think they're hallucinations, both visual and auditory. The visions grow very scary and dark quickly. And so I don't really know what's happening. And it's just staying with it because what else are you going to do, right? I finally call for C. So my partner is downstairs in the house. I finally call for him and I say, I'm divided over doing so. Like, I don't want to bother him. And also, I'm having trouble using my voice. I call his name from the upstairs bedroom. He's playing guitar and I'm wanting to sleep. The sound is distorted through my ostensibly hallucinating mind. I know I should call for him, that he should be here with me. And finally, he arrives. Like, I can't get voice out. It's just like a whisper. And he can't hear me. And I just don't have speech. I'm losing speech. I'm losing my vocals. I'm losing perception. I'm losing sensation in my body in some ways, and then having heightened sensations in other ways that I cannot control. I am ashamed, I write in my journal here, continuing on, I'm ashamed to have him see me like this. Will he leave me, I wonder? Will he be afraid of me? And am I going crazy? I'm certainly not myself. I am being overtaken. I want Rebecca back. Where is she? Where am I? Who or what is this? Again, you can see all these questions as everything that I know about myself or thought I knew about myself is beginning to slip away. I can't do anything but submit and go along with the tide. I am certainly not myself, exactly that. I can't recall what words I first speak to see that begin the dangerous descent into my seemingly unknown psyche. Maybe he can help me remember how it began. Will he help me? How did he feel to hear my whimpers and screams on this night? I don't remember the sequencing of all this. I'm calling for the bad people to stop. I call them this, the bad people. And you can start to see in my language here, will he help me? The bad people are here. I'm descending into a child's stream of consciousness, yeah? Very, very clearly. And then this is, so I want to share too, I could not remember everything verbatim, nor could he, from the intensity of the night. So this is what I wrote the following morning, kind of picking up the fragments that I could recall. And there are things that are lost. I wish I had asked or had the vocal capacity to ask him to record it on his phone, but we didn't get this documented. I so wish I had. And if it happens again ever, I will try and make that happen. I wrote, and I remember this, when the plane takes off, they shoot a child in the head as a kind of programming for the other kids on the plane. Don't you ever remember this, and don't you ever tell, because what is the fastest way to lose memory? Create just a pathology that is so depraved. Kill a child. It's so traumatic for everyone in the plane. Nobody will remember a thing. These are memories and intel breaking through that relate to occult abuse and child porn, the trafficking of innocence, myself among them. They are mixed up, these memories, a jumble of deviant sex abuse, whimpering for them to stop. At times I am also defiant. I tell C, I am not supposed to tell, and yet still in a child's plaintive voice I say, I tell it, I tell it, I say it, I tell it, I say it, like I'm looking for permission from my partner, you know, as my child self is looking to him to be the authority, right? The authority male in the situation, because that was what I was always yielding my power to in the abuse scenarios. And so I'm asking him, I say it, I tell it, do I have permission? And then I offer that I do. If I do, they might kill me. So there's intense programming as a result of the deaths and killing, to never ever remember, and again, to never ever tell. I am mostly mute. I cannot speak from the position of my vaguely conscious adult self, only with extreme effort. I'm trying hard to hang on to that part of myself, but maybe I just need to let go. C holds me as we lie together in bed. He faces me with my hands clasped to his chest. He is tracking with me. I remember his eye contact was very profound, like, stay with me, stay with me, stay with me, don't let go. It comes as a question again from my child's voice. I speak it, I do. Again, I'm looking for permission to come forth with what I know. My voice is that of a small child, scared and looking for reassurance. And I say, I watched them all die. I lived, they all died. I had to watch them die. And we weren't supposed to cry. There's much whimpering and tears. I'm making sounds of being both violated and subdued. I can't control my body. I am completely overtaken by these parts. I am limp and animated at the same time. I'd be punished watching them die. A child's verbiage, you know, she says, I'd be punished watching them die. And sobbing, she says, they hurt us, they hurt us, they hurt us, they hurt us, over and over. And I still hear her voice in my head. These weeks later, they hurt us. There's such fear in my small voice. Some of this is the whimpering of an infant. They hurt us for fun, I say. They hurt us for fun. Over and over again, I say, they hurt us. And a transcription note here in the journal, like I said, this is harrowing to read through. Yeah, and it was the day after, you know, when I wrote all this, it was harrowing, and it's harrowing in some ways to read it all here. But there's a point, and remember, we bring this around to light. Yeah. Oh, so much compassion for all of this and all of us. I say that as I'm just, you know, we're all holding space here together. And then again, no, I'd not tell. Okay, this is a response. I'm with C, we're in bed, and all these memories are starting to come through, and they're very visceral, very graphic, very traumatic. And it's mostly the child parts that can have language. My conscious adult self is like not on board. So we can see the battle between telling and not telling. She says, no, 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 I not tell. This is, a response to someone, a handler seeking info, and I am resisting. So this would have happened to me back in my childhood years. Somebody probing me for intel and me saying, no, you won't have it. There is something I say about that night, on the 12/12, I say about being a spy, gathering info. I want to remember this part, something about coordinates and how we gathered intel. Help me remember this bit. It's like all my programming is breaking open, and finally, after decades, I'm able to see and say and to remember that which I was never ever meant to remember. Yeah, this is related to the child porn cabal, and what she's revealing points to a high-level organized crime syndicate. Yeah. Then there's something about Satan and we will be one. This is also a programming, this is said by someone else, one of the Dark Lords, and I think it relates to occult abuse on my mother's side of the family, going way back, but something I experienced in my early years. Back to the moment, as I'm relaying this, or C is here with me, and he says, I am still here. My gaze is in the beginning, completely locked to his. I am afraid that if I close my eyes, I will die. I am so woozy, swimmy, and overtaken, so unwell. I feel that I fear that I am dying. I don't come out and say it, though. I don't want him to worry. I'm sure he's already very worried about what's happening. I mean, I can't stop that. I will myself not to die. I am so tired, though, that I want to let go, even if it means into death. I don't want to leave him like this, though. I can't leave my love here like this to watch me die helpless in turmoil and alone. I can't go like this. It can't be over like this, can it? Please don't let me die like this. And that's where the part about the question around targeting came in. Like, was I being, they were trying to get at me that night, and it flipped and backfired and turned into a luminous lotus flower of light for my journey. So if that's the case, and I was being targeted remotely by electronic frequencies, it did backfire, and I did make it out, but I felt like I was dying that night. We could also call it a metaphorical death. I'm being reborn, absolutely, 100%. I tell C to call in the Arcturians and later Mother Mary. I need protection. True enough. And I say safe man, meaning C. My child parts calls him a safe man during this whole episode. My small parts keep calling him this. They need him to be a safe man for me. None of the others were ever safe. Of course, they were abusing me. They were raping me. I also keep apologizing that he has to see me this way. Will you leave me? I keep thinking. I tell him if he has other things to do now, he can go do them. I'll be okay alone, I tell him, as if I'm always and ever prepared to face all things in my life unaided. This makes me very sad, heartbreaking to hear myself speak in this way. Because I know that's what I did as a kid to survive. Prepared to be always alone with no one at your back and no protection. Yeah. I can't really speak what I feel and sense and see. I don't have usual access to my faculties. I just let it wash over me. I can't remember it all. And I also feel like I'm kind of in and out of consciousness. It seems to me now, writing this all out, that I'm walking between worlds, between living and dying. I want to remember all this, and I want not to be afraid to let myself fall open. So you can feel how the tension between telling and not telling, and also like hanging on to the normal, conventional, egoic identity structure and letting it just fall apart on the spot. Oh my God, I managed to say this aloud several times. Oh my God, the horror is what I mean, the overwhelm. I say to Chris again and again, remember this because I will not. And I throughout this, and that was with great effort that I said that from my adult conscious place, remember this, please remember this. I need all this information. We still don't have a great record of it. I knew the programming was breaking open, and also because of all of that, these things might come through in speech in the night, but that in the morning I might not have any recall. So there's more than what I'm relaying here that I may not ever get back, unfortunately. There are graphic descriptions of what was done. They put things in my face, meaning my mouth, and also they put a gun in my mouth and a gun in my pussy. That's pretty graphic language for a small child, but there it is. And this is something I have had glimpses and memories of. It very deviant sexual abuse being filmed in that way, and a lot of oral rape anal rape, being raped by objects, held in strange positions. I remember a lot of just concrete, cold, kind of damp places where these things would happen. Never comfortable. The screams of other children, and also our numbness and our internally numb and dead inside. You just dissociate when these things are happening because, in a way, you wish you would die and not have to remember any of this. The movements I'm making with my body are the movements of a very small child being violated, raped repeatedly in horrifying ways. Where do we go now as a collective? If this is happening, then no one is truly free. Oh my God. So what is shocking is not that I knew about these memories in some way, some parts of these, not some stuff is new, some stuff is old, but it came through me so viscerally. I didn't have control of my body, and there's all these movements coming forth from the soma that are hard to describe, like going back and reliving it as if I'm in a child's body. And the positions I was taking in bed were very much what I was describing just now here. So I don't want to get too much more graphic than that. Yeah, and that's about the extent of what I can share here about the direct translation from the 12:12 that night in the wee hours. But continuing on, there's quite a bit more here, extrapolating from what had happened. In sit, meaning in meditation the following day, I just know that something is over and behind me now. I feel like I've been like washed up at on the tide on the beach after a great, great storm at sea that I've been tossed about in, right? And I also have this feeling like, will it come back? Will I start to have episodes like this that I can't control? Again, this is the morning after, and I'm shell-shocked. That's absolutely the right word for it. I'm afraid of losing on my mind, losing my mental faculty. And between you and I here, like becoming unstable mentally, like my mother and her mother before her. My mother has DID, might be called a mental health disorder, dissociative identity disorder, certainly. And her mother before her had what we could call as nervous breakdown after nervous breakdown. Now, I would argue, was she mentally ill, or that these are products of extreme trauma that has not been healed. What is a very fine line between mental illness and unhealed trauma, right? I no longer fear that I'm losing my mind. I am quite sane. But in the aftermath of this, I was not sure. And I wrote here too, we're moving into Saturday, December 13th. Did this happen because my mother is slipping mentally? Her trauma bleed through hastening mine because we are wed at this dense energetic level. Am I clearing my mother's trauma as she begins to lose this reality? And I spoke to this in the last episode of Bringing Light to the Dark, number 21, where I was talking about the grays and this is very relevant, my mom and going back to the family home after 12 years away. So the following night after this, how are you guys doing? How's this landing? Oh, thanks for bearing with me through those hard parts. Yeah, it's trying to find a word, bear with me. Yeah, it's catalyzing. And I think it's healing to share what I was never supposed to remember. Yeah. I'm awake often the following night, in and out of sleep, experiencing a reverberation of all of the majestic insanity of the night before. Small whimpering parts needing love and attention. They need to feel safe, and I am giving them that. The episode, as I call it, I am metabolizing it, is the only thing I can really be with now. This is life-changing in ways I intuit but cannot yet completely see. And again, the following days over the weekend, I'm still like, I'll be in meditation and hear that voice saying, they heard us, they heard us, they heard us. It's like this tape that plays over and over like a metronome. It's like the automaton voice. Yeah, this part of me whimpers. I have to seize this important moment, a wide open gap, to gather all the wisdom and intelligence within this, to integrate, to understand. In the night, I want to get up and sit naked in my rocking chair in the center of the living room, alone with all the space around me in the wee hours, and just cry. I want to cry, but I can't. The part of me that's like numb and shut down. Do you relate to that? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, we go into a frozen state in our nervous system and the emotion just doesn't always come. Yeah. I'm writing about I have to remember this. I have to break through the program not to tell. That's the biggest takeaway. And so, of course, the making of the video, what am I doing? I'm deprogramming because I am speaking to it. If all of this is true and the body says so, it doesn't lie, then I have to be able to reckon for real with the question of how much did my father know? And did he participate? This has always been a question I've avoided probing too deeply, not wanting to know the answer. And I want to say, as I'm here now with you in this, like, it remains true. I don't really want to know. If it needs to be known, it will come up in some way, shape, or form. It will be shown. And later that day, I'm finally crying. And I broke down in my meditation. I said, safe to tell now, the child's voice coming forth. Because the others died and I lived, I have to tell it now. I have to tell it. So round and round we go. We can see how like pernicious the programming is and how excruciating that inner tension is between the imperative to speak and the programming to be killed if I do. Yeah, and I mentioned the drugged haze in that episode. I mentioned it in my notes. I said that I was drugged. I knew this anyway, but here it is again. Drugs to make me compliant and accommodating and also to forget. And I wrote ketamine, I think was something that they used because it causes complete amnesia and complete and utter total compliance. It's a date rape drug, and it was certainly around in the 70s. I think it came on board around, I want to say 60s. I also have a small part that is waiting to be punished, perhaps by C himself. Now remember, C's my partner. That's his initial. I fear retribution since he is, after all, a middle-aged white man. So were all of my abusers. Yeah. Ironically, the importance of the witness and healing is also very much in evidence here. These parts need adult me and also C, a safe presence to tell it to speak to say, to reveal, and to be held with whatever comes next in this process. Healing will not and cannot happen without this witness. There was something, and I'll talk more about, like, again, what was the perfect storm that created all of this? Partially because he was there in my life to be that, the man holding space. And it had to be the masculine, because who are all my abusers and perpetrators? Handlers, groomers, they're all men. With the exception, in my memory, the only exception to that is the naval woman at Montauk, who put me, you know, it's like getting me in and out of the silver bullet. I've spoken to that in other videos. I'm not going down that rabbit hole right now, but by and large, all men, middle-aged white men. So that can be triggering, but that's also the healing when he can show up for me in this way, hold space, and help my parts know that there's safety in the masculine. Oh. So over the weekend, again, I said in my meditation, also in my journal, bad things happen, so bad we didn't believe they were true. Now we know the truth. This is not a fiction and not a lie, and now all of us can come home. So when we finally believe our own story and we know that, we can no longer question it, because what came through to me was proof. I could not have made that up at all. What came through so viscerally and profoundly, provocatively, it overtook me in a way that I was only overtaken, and it was not as long as this. This went on for a couple hours that night on the 12/12, when the memories about Aquino, also related to Montauk, came through. I was very much overtaken, screaming in the fetal position like a child, the concrete floor of my home down in Texas at the time, screaming like an animal that had been run over in the road by a car. Harrowing again, but it didn't go on like this. It was over in the matter of 10 minutes. Letting go of all the tension in my throat. Do you relate to this? From so long now. Speaking of these atrocities, I have been mute, and now that time is over. Yeah. I am breaking through the systems and structures that have kept all this down, hidden, and the programming is releasing. To believe that somehow I caused all this, that I am responsible for not only my own torture and abuse, but also that of the others, especially the others that were killed in cold blood in sexualized, ritualized way. Yeah. I'm going to talk about healing also. Stay with me. Talk about how we move through this and how I've healed and how you can heal too. Yeah. again, this is sort of getting repetitive because again, my small parts keep coming up in my meditation saying, we don't tell it. No, we're scared. No, I tell it. I tell it. I say it. It's like back and forth, this pendulation, this inner conflict that is very, very intense and real. I've been working through that these last 2 months to get to the publishing of this video and beyond. That I'll be talking about the good news here at the end. I say in my notes here again, everyone is dead. In this case, I don't mean kids. I mean the perpetrators here in 2026. Meaning, again, we are safe to talk. It's time. Speaking in light language and tongues and murmurs at night, she begins to tell it, she being the small parts. I recall that the language of the unconscious is not in linear form, and it is communicated via symbols, images, and feelings. This is why the language of these kids, and particularly infant parts that came up on 12, they weren't all kids that have language, these young parts of me. Some of them are preverbal. This is why their language can sound like gibberish, yet is highly intelligent. It comes from the deepest wounded place in my own being, starting in infancy and even before in the womb, in a time when there are no words and there is as yet no solid self born. So we have to find different ways of getting at accessing all of this that is in the subconscious and even deeper down into the unconscious. Yeah. And in the evening, again, we're just a couple days out from this whole 12-12 in my journals. I'm talking about the infant vocals. And I say, because those in the aftermath, that young infant part of me that was abused so extreme, in extreme ways, I say her sound is a gateway to memory, intelligence, and also healing. Intel meaning intel about. She knows everything about how this whole crime syndicate was operating. And I want to get to the bottom of this. I am not done getting memories back and information back, by far. So in those baby vocals, those infant coos and just funny sounds, keep coming through. They have, and there are some, they're not all distress cries. Some of them are very, they're happy, they're joyful. What happens when we are deeply traumatized or have survived the unthinkable? We freeze, especially as children, when what are infants? Everything helpless and innocent, and they can't do anything. They can't feed themselves. They can't put on clothes if they're cold. They pee and poop themselves. They can't go to the toilet. They depend entirely on somebody else. And so if you're in a frozen state because you've just been, sodomized in some way as an infant, everything shuts down. You don't keep vocal. You don't want to draw attention to yourself, so you don't make a sound. You kind of curl into a ball energetically, shrink. And that is, I think, in part how I spent a lot of my early years in that state. I don't know why or how that could have been normalized in my family, but it was. I don't know. I've never been told if I had developmental disabilities or didn't talk in the usual, span of months that a baby should be starting to have language, or I don't know. I don't know those stories about my early life. But just to say that letting those, it's been very healing to let those very infant sounds come out. They don't track with linear language, but they have meaning. So if this is something coming through for you, run with it, because it will start unlocking things for you in brilliant ways. Don't be afraid of what others might think or what your conscious adult mind might think. Just let it rip. Let it come through. Yeah. And I said this in my notes. I can feel the English translation sort of coming through the giggles and sparks and coos and caws and ahs and woos, that there is factual data to be recovered through this. And it kept coming in the night, in that week, 2 weeks after this episode, and still comes up now at times. And I wrote here, was the CIA itself actually at the helm of the organization that Eckstein groomed me to perform within? My research reveals links between the CIA, MKUltra, and child porn. Obviously, the link between MKUltra and the CIA is well known. That's not to be disputed, but yes, the child porn featuring in that as a trauma-based mind control technology that they were exploring. My father also being under contract with the CIA, and he revealed a lot of that before his death in 2020. I hadn't ever gone this deep before, never wanted to know, never connected the dots. I was too busy hoping this was all a fiction, but of course, there was a higher level of organization behind all this. though it would likely be a consortium of players, not only one agency. A child sex cartel. Exactly. So even though we have been threatened with death, it's imperative that she brings forth this information, the intel and the factual data back for the others, since they are dead now, but we are alive. The need to recall is starting to outweigh the need to forget. So, and just to be kind of clear, I know I'm sort of, I feel a little repetitive on this, but it's so profound that children were killed. And most people don't realize that. When we talk about child porn, we don't think about child killing, murder. But that is absolutely what was happening here. In meditation in late December, this happened days and upon days in a row. It's shocking, the things that, when memories come back. I need them, but at the same time, there's things I cannot unsee. And in these words kept coming. I have seen them. I have seen the killing fields. That's hard to hold. I'm not talking about 1970s Cambodia, Khmer Rouge, and the Reign of Terror in Southeast Asia. Though there is that, but the killing fields referencing dead children and watching them die. Thank you for being with me. I had a few notes that Chris had made. I asked him to make some notes about what he remembered. So we're up to Monday, December 15th. A lot has happened. He just had some bullet points: burning children alive, shooting children. And I kept saying, according to his notes, I kept saying, I'm alive. Why am I alive? They get so much pleasure from hurting us. Also from C's notes in his own notebook, I know I've been bad. This is what I was saying that night. Don't hurt me. I'm sorry. I kept repeating that, like, this is my fault. That's programming. That's programming. Yeah. And within the sexual abuse scenarios, there was a handler that kept coming in who said, you like that, don't you? You like that. It makes you feel special. And C also wrote, I'm not sure if she was being forced to kill other children herself or just being forced to watch. And so just pausing with all that. That's pretty heavy. I don't want to take us deeper into a trauma field, but just to bring light to the tragedy of this, I think, because it's still going on. Sure, this happened to me how many years ago? Decades ago. But yet it's still happening. It hasn't ended. So something else that happened within all of this, in the days that followed, my crown chakra was totally blown up or open, and I think has remained rather amplified. I'm reminded that in ritual abuse, porn abuse, the handlers, and other kinds of deviant sexual abuse, the handlers want to gain access to the child's light and divinity, which they have in abundance, right? Via intense trauma, the child splits off. Personal identity is all but severed. So that the others, the handlers, can then mainline what I would call the God frequency, which is very much in place in young children. This divinity loosh is especially potent near the time of death. This explains, at least to me as I understand it intuitively, why my crown might be very open now. This was, again, in my notes in the days following the 12/12, and why something similar happened in New Hampshire with all the deceased children pouring in through the portal in my mom's home. Go back and watch the last episode of the series if you missed it. Those children were wounded and seeking shelter and intelligence within the light. My light perhaps reflecting their own. So there's a lot to that. We talk about the energetics and the occult manipulations, orchestrations, manipulating energy, things I have difficulty explaining and articulating in linear language. But now it's like I want to reclaim and take back the gifts. And I have, I have much ability, incredibly potent sessions. I receive feedback on a daily basis. It's nothing but favorable for my clients. But there's yet up-leveling going on now, and it keeps happening, right? And so this is all part of the up-leveling of my abilities, right? And what was I programmed to do? Stay away from them because they were used for bad, deviant things. It can then make us stay away from our own psychic capacity, our intuition, our sensitivity, our empathy, our emotion, our love, because we fear its weaponization. Also on this night, the wood stove at the house, I wrote this down. The wood stove fire triggers me and I have to get away from it. I see and feel burning bodies, children incinerated. Is this my memory? I want it not to be. I remember because someone has to. And I'm alive. They're dead. Was this Montag, a ritual, porn? It all begins to run together. And it's true. That night it was mostly from, the porn abuse, as I'm calling it, with Eckstein, and also occult abuse within my family and some smatterings of other things. But it all does kind of run together. These memories that have been vaulted kind of erupt, and it's not always so linear, right? In the evening, I realize, wow, I am processing something very deep for the whole collective. Largely because I have been through this and I've lived to tell it. And as a survivor, I am resourced to go where others cannot. So as we move toward our most harrowing experiences, we become part of the medicine for the whole planet. I think that's a really important takeaway today. I'm nearly done reading and taking you all through this, so I just appreciate you standing by, and I hope this is maybe illuminating pieces of your own journey that maybe something has been hard to face for you, or you have this you could see this intense inner conflict. Remember, forget, speak it, stay mute, expand your life and your frequency, your vibration, step into the light, or stay in darkness and shadow and hide. These are intense and intentional inner battles that are created through programming intentionally. Back to December 16th. You can tell these days were, I don't know what else happened on these days. I don't know if anything could have happened. I was so consumed by all of this. I understand everything I've been running from my whole life is begging me now to sit still. I cannot outrun this. I've been hanging on so tight since the beginning of this life, and now I just want to let go. Please help me. True and vulnerable, right? Divine timing. Divine timing. We're sitting with it. It couldn't have happened 5 or 10 years ago. It had to happen now. Yeah. And so this is the last bit here, a little bit with the Arcturians. So I'd had some pretty intense sacral pain that has come and gone and kind of on the on switch recently as all this was coming through. And so one morning, and I work very closely with the Arcturians in my healing sessions, and they are part of my team and part of my family in some ways. And I see myself in their body, or as me, I feel myself as an Arcturian. And I said to them, hey, can you help me resolve this tension in the back? And they said to me, again, back a couple days after this whole thing happened, we can't free you of this completely. Part of this is yours to resist, but we do all things as allies in service to the greatest good. We exist as your guardians and guides here, there, and everywhere. There is something you learn through your travails with this particular, area of your healing. Mainly, you begin to value your own skill as a healer. Let this be your primary teacher. Your ability is strong as a blade, precise as a knife. We will not interfere with that. This is your gift, and you are one of us. Amazing. And that was I liked their boldness with me. I appreciated what they reflected back to me because it was very, it was potentizing. Yeah. And something very dear inside of it. And with all this has come through something about, I keep hearing this in my inner work with myself and also client sessions, the Arcturian flame, that is like this purifying, this white light, Arcturian star energy that just comes up, and I see it in my sacral center right now as I'm talking, and through my womb and through the genesis of feminine energy through my system. It just We'll talk more on healing. And this lastly was something came through from Father, my Indigenous father with the Crow people. I've talked about Mother and Father on the channel quite a bit in these episodes with the Bringing Light to the Darkness series. He was also helping me with healing too, and he came. This was days later, quite a bit later, while still in bed before rising. I see and feel Father on my right, mightily pulling up and out of my solar plexus a huge snake. Biblical in effect, biblical in its energy. It's like so big. It's strong and has fight and will coming out of my solar plexus and exemplifying the battle, ages old, eons old, between light and dark. Father pulls it up and out of me into the heavens, and it dissolves into light. Beautiful moment, very powerful. The snakes represent many, many things. Of course, in this community, often when we think of reptiles, we think of negative, but we can also look at the life-giving force of the snake, and it sheds and it revives and it births again. It sheds its skin and takes on new life. It's fertility. In some ways, in some cultures, it's been very much emblematic of the feminine. So that's another conversation. So, so here we are with all of this coming through. Now, let's go back. I told you we would get into, how did this, what precipitated all of this? Yeah. What precipitated this? Why did this, why, how, what? So, yeah, I have had to really sit with that. What was the perfect storm? Because it's time. Because Eckstein died over a year ago, safe to come forward with information from my own personal psyche and my own personal archive, because nobody can come after me. Not that guy anyway. It's over. And I've done a lot of work to get to this point. So exactly the divine timing thing. I had said to see back in the spring, I feel like something really big is going to come through spring of last year. I don't know what exactly it is, but it's connected to the child porn stuff, and it might be a lot for you to hold. And boy, was that precognitive or what? Yeah. So months later, boom, here we are. I had no idea how epic it was going to be. I also take an herbal sleep support. I don't know if that had certainly some influence on it because it is mellowing out the mind, right? And I had led the night before, check out the video on the channel, Alchemical Endocrine. I had led a live journey for you guys, getting into healing the endocrine system, the importance of the endocrine system, and how the Greys are really interested in the human endocrine system. And when I channel something for like a healing journey for a large audience, so much energy comes in through me, it can really amplify, open the crown for me personally, and deliver quite a lot. It almost like electrifies my system. And that can be a little draining, also very healing, can be a lot of things. It can open up my gateways of perception because I'm downstepping enormous amounts of energy for all the people who are listening in the moment and all those people who will be listening. So, and C came down the night after this happened and he said, something in me is clearing. That thing you led was powerful. And I agree. And so I think there might have been a collusion of, some, it did. It opened up something inside of me that maybe I needed the journey for me, not just to give it to you guys, but also for me to help all of this unlock. I mentioned the piece about, my mother kind of beginning to fade. She's 88 now, and she's slipping. Her mind is slipping. Unhealed trauma is coming up, and all these crazy things are going on for her. The messages she leaves me through text do not always make sense. They are a little alarming and disturbing, as if her child parts are like screaming to get out. She has a lot of child parts that are trapped in unending darkness. And so because the mother-child bond is so strong, even though I've never had a typical mother in the usual sense that way, there's something to that is hard to articulate. Also because C was there in my life and had this person here, the safe man, as a witness. It needed a witness. I couldn't have gone here on my own. It would not have been safe in my system. I think the child parts needed his presence that night. Yeah, in an incredibly intimate way, right? Anything else I can think of with that? This was predicated by the universe itself. In a way, it has been written in the book of your life from the beginning of time. And maybe that, okay, so maybe that relates to what I said at the beginning of it couldn't be any other way. As fucked up as that was, it couldn't be any other way. And what is the nature? Let's talk about this too. The nature of traumatic memory. You know, you guys know this. When something unbearable happens to us that we fear that we cannot survive if we remember it, or it's just too much for our psyche to hold, it's too much to metabolize, it fragments into a million pieces. It's stored in the subconscious, it's stored in the body. The intelligence of the soma actually contains it. And we can tap into it. We can, with effort and intention and some patience with ourselves over time, we can begin to access those things. You can find ways to unlock the subconscious mind by also deepening our brainwave state. You know, I talked about this a little bit in my couple of short videos. Check out that playlist if you want. Subconscious mind speaks nonlinear language, but through images and emotions, right? Feel your body too. Feel the sensations in your body. The meditation practice that I have, it's seminal moments of that meditation, or the inroads of it, the beginning point is to notice the awareness of the body, the sensations of whether it's tightness or tingling, or just you'll notice as soon as you bring your awareness into your what's called as interoception, your inner sensation, rather than the mind looking out at everything else, but your brainwave state, if you stay there, will start to shift, shifting your focus. So we want to move the brain waves from the beta state, which is where we do our human doing, the executive mind functions in the beta brainwave state, into alpha and theta and beyond, right? And so of course I'm going to say, you know me, I'm going to say meditation is the key to that. If you don't meditate, of course the window into all of that, those deepened brainwave states, comes through sleep and dreams and things that go on at night. Of course, that's why this whole episode happened at night. It's not going to happen when my busy brain is going during the day, right? But also, like I've mentioned the float tank that I use regularly to just rest and go up there, to be honest. I meet my light family, and lots of things come through that because it's such a deep state of relaxation. Anytime you get body work, maybe a massage, cranial sacral, any of these things, Reiki, that will shift you into a deep relaxation state. And walking in the forest, walking in nature, journaling. If you're journaling in a way where you're just in free flow, not masterminding, but just being spontaneous, so we could talk about automatic writing. You will gain access to your subconscious, and the inner child work itself that I do with clients and heavily with myself, right? Is I am the template of that. I'm like the classic wounded healer, right? But very adept at what I do as a result of everything I've been through and everything I've learned in such humble ways, along the path, right? The children are gateways into the subconscious. So anytime you're relating with a child aspect, you are beginning to access things in your subconscious. And that's always going to be a win. Even though it can feel like it's an uncommon or unknown language, yeah? Stay with that, right? Also through plant medicine, that is gaining in popularity. There's quite a community of folks working in a bit of an underground environment across the nation that use microdoses of psilocybin, DMT, MDMA, and even ketamine, ironically, that I mentioned earlier, to bring, client into those areas that I'm describing that cannot be accessed through only conscious talking. And I am actually in correspondence with a friend of mine on the East Coast who's been doing this work for years with clients. I'm probably going to fly out and do some work with him to see if I can intentionally gain access to these parts again and kind of complete the process. Because that night, I should say this too, that night, how did that all end? It had gone on. I didn't like look at my watch and, but it was a couple hours for sure. And it could have gone on and on for more hours. But I was so tired and I was fearing for see being with me, and I was worried about like how he was doing, honestly, that I finally was able to gather my voice. Remember during that episode, like I couldn't, it was only with great effort that I could find my voice. I remember saying, at least internally, I said to them, I really am so glad you're here with all of this. It's a gift. And we're tired and we need to go to sleep. I was so exhausted. I was like so beside myself after all this happened. So in hindsight, I wish I had just let it go to completion, whatever that meant, and that even if it kept me up all night, because I feel like it would have been, especially if I could have recorded it. Word for the future. None of this has happened again. I haven't had a repeat of this, and I don't fear it anymore. In the aftermath, I was certainly like, fuck, is this going to be the thing that like I'm starting to come unhinged, and this is just going to be coming up at random moments, and I'm like screaming like a child victim, in some hideous underground base somewhere. It hasn't happened that way. Although it has, in the sense that those child parts come through and I'm working with them consciously, and I wake in the night and I'm speaking in some other language. It's not really light language, but it's the vocalizations of these young parts that have information that's coming, like I said, delivering intel and things that I think if I let this keep going, it will reveal a lot to me over time. And to be patient with your process with this. It cannot be rushed. These things that have been kept down and evolved for decades are not in any position to hurry, right? We want to be mindful of their pace and the pace of your adult self, and the child parts might not always be synced. Over time in working with them, they will become more and more synced up. My goodness, this is so much here. Um, yeah. So, and I think I mentioned this in the last video too. I'm very, very interested in the nature of pre-verbal trauma and how, yeah, we connect to the smallest, youngest fragments of ourselves or parts of ourselves, accessing everything we've forgotten in those first couple of years of life and even in utero. So that's why I've kind of riffed a lot on that tonight here as I'm recording. And we can also tap into really good memories. It's not all trauma. What about maybe you were nursed by your mother and there's really warm, fuzzy, oxytocin memories, the feel good neurochemicals like that you could tap into, or, those can be such nourishing memories. There's good things out there in the field from our early life too. It's not just horror and trauma. Yeah. And I mentioned the piece about the infant vocals coming through. I want to say that also in my sessions, or if you're doing any kind of healing work with yourself, this comes through as a question from the guides often. Is there a sound that wants to come out through your voice? Is there a sound that wants to come through your belly? Is there a sound connected to what's emergent for you? Let it come and don't be shy. Like if you go back and listen to, I think this happened in Alchemical Endocrine, the healing journey I led, that's on the channel. I'll link it below. As we got to different way stations on that journey through the endocrine system, I think what was coming through was like, is there a sound that wants to emerge? Don't be shy, just let it happen. It doesn't have to be a pretty sound. It can be what we call like a not pretty sound. It doesn't matter. The point is you're vocalizing it. And what is healing? What is so many things? It's energy encapsulated as vibration, frequency, and sound. No, just a note on that. I think that's super important. It's coming more and more into what I do with the people I work with. Yeah. And remember that communications from like the subconscious parts, those pre-verbal parts, the even prenatal parts, can come through feelings in the body, emotions through the heart, pictures in the mind. So these are the ways that are non-verbal, non-linear, and yet they speak volumes. Psychic visions, pictures in the mind. Oh, you bet. So many ways once we start making ourselves available to our own process, unafraid. We're always in dialogue with the deeper parts of ourselves in some manner. Whether we're looking toward them or not is another matter. And not everyone has the same path as I do. But I'm certainly here to help you out in that direction if that is your calling, to dive deeper into the unknown. Yeah. Hmm. With that, and you know I'm a meditator, in the weeks following this, I'd gone back into these memories. There's a point to me mentioning this. It's a bit graphic, but repeat visions and memories of my mother strangling me while sexually abusing me as an infant. And now, why was that being communicated to me? It was my psyche showing me that once there's trauma in the field of a certain nature for a certain frequency, um, it begets more. We're attracted for more of the same through an energetic communication that's happening in our fields. We become magnets for more abuse. Now, we can really heal this, but usually not when we're children. So it can explain why there's many orders of magnitude to extreme abuse scenarios in somebody's file, so to say, somebody's book of life, early life. In my case, certainly this bears out and is true. Um, but I think it was given also as like, you're healing this. Yes, this is there, and you don't need to look away from it. You're a healer. As the Arcturians said, you're a healer, and you can work with this and bring all things into the light. That's really my job. It's not everybody's job, nor should it be. but this seems to be my wheelhouse. There's also something, I mentioned this in the last video as well. I keep saying that in different contexts. So the death wisdom. What did I learn? These highly amplified, empathetic situations in which there was death of a child. In reflection, I know that I was experiencing that death as if it was my own in these situations because my psychic capacity was so turned on, like up to here, really, really open. And because I had no self, no distinction between self and other, partly because I was an empath, highly sensitive child, psychic child, and partly because I've been drugged and abused. Like there is no boundary where I end and the other begins. So, but I think there's some important takeaway, as harrowing as that is, and as shocking as that is, and as emotional as that can be for me. There is also like the wisdom of what happens when we remember going to the other side. It helps us live well in this realm and helps us amplify our own spiritual understanding here in human form and beyond. That's something I think I will still continue to mine and explore and wringing out the wisdom inside of the wound, as I've said. Yeah. How's all this landing? Let me know in the comments. It's a lot. It's a lot. Healing. Let's talk about healing. We have been, but let's even go deeper. Yeah. Begin with your small parts. Book a session with me if you need to. Yeah, so because it can seem like another language to work with our small parts. It is so abstract. Nobody tells you about how you do this or that we have small parts and that they might be needing care because at the time of XYZ, they didn't get what they needed. Well, the first thing, emotional TLC, emergency first responder for these child parts that came up for me, in my case, in the 1212. If you've listened to the channel, that I've done extensive work with my infant part and my 4-year-old, my 9-year-old, my 17-year-old, all of them. But this is like treating these particular aspects of me that came up that night. First of all, help them feel safe. Let them know that you're there, and that everything they have to share with you is welcome. Be warm and gentle and kind. Close your eyes, see them as if they're seated there in front of you. What are they wearing? What are they showing you? What's alive in their eyes? What's alive in their body language? Do they have any sound, whether it's linear, English, otherwise, whatever it may be? Are they crying? Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they mute? Are they frozen? Are they illuminated with light? What are they? Just listen. There's no right or wrong answer to what they present, but be present to them. Because this is turning toward your own life. We all have wounds. You don't have to go through what I've been through to to need to work with those bits. You know, our lives are helped when we just turn toward the delicate parts that also are so wise and so loving. We make a better relationship with ourselves in doing so. So just help them feel safe and know that you're there for them. That's enormous in and of itself. So that's the first thing. For me, I will say too, I think this is tied into why this all came up. The female ascended masters and goddess energy have been around for a long time, for many years. The Hathors being the first first showers in that retinue of women back, I don't know, over 10 years ago. And the embodiment of the divine feminine is something that comes through over and over in like, hey, how do I heal this? It's increasing that energy in my life without fear, and it heals the masculine. So I led a journey for a group on Zoom on the 11/11. It was called God Spark and Heart Song. So this was 11/11, just a month before the 12/12 happened and all this stuff came through. And since that night, just powerful. Those female ascended masters have been all around me like every day. It's like the Hathors, yes, Isis, Kuan Yin, Mother Hathor, Mother Mary, and so on. Very palpable and visceral, and they come through me as if I am embodying that thing. They're not separate and outside of me, but I feel their mind stream, their energetics, as if I'm very porous. So it comes through me quite viscerally. Again, I've mentioned that with the Arcturians, and it's just how my system is. Very healing, and again, it heals the wounds of the masculine and amplifies those parts of me that are naturally giving birth. Yeah. There's another thing, of course, deprogramming around I am responsible for the torture and abuse that I suffered, the deaths that I witnessed, the deaths and abuse and torture of others, the children, and so on. This is a very well-known, convoluted trauma-based mind control technology in which handlers and abusers cause harm and then twist and turn the whole situation and scenario on its head. That you are left feeling that you caused the death, you caused the abuse, and you'll go through life divided, divorced from yourself, unable to break free, overextending yourself with others, taking responsibility for what's not yours. Just ring a bell. So we can receive that programming when we grow up as empaths in highly dysfunctional families. We become emotional caretakers for the family, sponging up other people's wounds, trying to make everything right. I have stopped doing that, and it's been nothing but good in my life. I feel very free as a result. So that's something that's really happened since the turn of the new year, particularly. Like, we don't have to rescue anybody. Love them, care for them, support them, help them. Not responsible for anybody's journey but your own. And I mean that in context of this deprogramming, to get at that at the root level. So it's been working with that through imagery and emotion, like feeling the sense of freedom, seeing the visions internally that I might associate with the freedom from the programming around that. Once you do that, like I do that in meditation, once you do that for at least 21 days, probably when it's heavy programming or very deeply bound to the unconscious, or happened in the first couple of years of life, take longer with it, but it will start to recondition the subconscious mind and set you free. So that's been happening. That's amazing. And do you relate with that? Let me know in the comments. I think that's a big one. I see it in a lot of, the emotional caretaking, energetic caretaking. I see this in lots of my, to some degree, in other empathic clients and people that I work with. And maybe it's an up-leveling on our planet right now, where we are all coming to understand what's our responsibility to heal, but maybe what is no longer our responsibility to carry. Yeah. There's something important in that equation. And also, I mentioned this, that the personal journeys that we're making are also helping to heal the collective. That's big. So big to remember that when you're working on your own stuff, you're helping liberate everybody. That's a win-win if I ever heard of one, right? Yeah. Um, and I think I mentioned this too, the incredible healing that can happen when we have a witness. In my case, I mentioned see, I needed somebody else to see this. What happened in my childhood? Nobody ever stopped what was happening. My body was showing signs of abuse. Nobody, not a teacher, a caregiver, anybody ever said, like, what happened to you? What's happening to you? I felt so forsaken by a system that allowed this to go on, a family system that allowed this to go on for years. So I think somebody who's able to hold space for you, it could be a therapist, it could be a friend, it could be whenever we hold space for ourselves, right? Like healing is happening, but it can't happen until we're turning toward ourselves, beholding our own suffering and say, I care about this. I care about what you've been through. Yeah. That's potent medicine. Yeah. So, wow. All the good things. Nothing but good has come out of this. I probably missed a few beats back in December and January because I was like, okay, so just treading water here, trying to metabolize everything. And I have been. And what I wanted to share in the good news, I have an interview down in Los Angeles. I leave in a week. I'm nervous, but I'm speaking to the child porn issue, child trafficking from very intimate personal experience with a guy, Mark Lyda, who owns the creator of the Soft White Underbelly channel here on YouTube. He has almost 7 million subscribers, and his content is bracing at best. He features a lot of the underbelly, the underworld of society that most people don't want to touch or look at. Drug addicts, sexual abuse, prostitutes, homelessness, victimization of various sorts. And I know it's part of my deprogramming to go down there and do this. Even though part of me is like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm scared. Of course you're scared. You're not supposed to do this, but this is how you get free. So, and he only does, it's not something we talk online. It's like, it's only in the studio, and he makes portraits, books of portraiture about his subjects. So I am, this video is kind of a bridge between here and there. Like this is sort of getting me ready at a psychological level to speak to a much wider audience too. We're not just speaking to what I might call the fringe disclosure community. While that's my wheelhouse and that's my family in so many ways, it's also awesome to get this out into a more conventional to a more conventional audience. I think that's also important, and I'm feeling very called in that direction. I have this, I know it's true, I know it's real, as fucked up as it is, it happened. I live to tell about it, and by God, I'm going to tell the story. That's what I'm here for. That's the mission. That's why I survived. There is no other reason, you know. So, not everybody's cup of tea, but certainly my calling. And I'm happy about that. And okay, so you guys might be listening and going, "Oh my God, Rebecca!" When I've told friends, only the closest people in my life really know about this. They're like, "Do you know how timely this is?" I don't know because, like I said, I don't know everything that's been coming up with like the Epstein files or whatever. I don't pay attention to the news. I'm tracking with the spiritual realms, and I report back from them because that's what I do. But it does seem timely, according to what's happening in the culture, that this is really bubbling up to the surface. If you have any links that you feel like are good ones for me to know about, stick my toe in the water just a little bit. This is why I keep myself a blank slate, because I don't know what's happening. I'm not being front loaded. That's part of why I don't look at things. So when they come in, I know I've been a blank slate. But that's interesting about the timing, and Mark and I might talk about that as well. Like, wow, this is really salient to the conversation on the surface right now. Yeah. Wow. Um, and when I look at the content on Soft White Underbelly, so, you know, where I'm going to interview I'm reminded of something, related to healing or deviance from the path of healing. I could have gone in so many other directions between what was going on in my natal family, my mother's abuse, things with my father, the SSP, occult, um, occult abuse, and this trauma through the gateway of being filmed, desecrated sexually in film, like loss of innocence. I could have become an addict. I could have succumbed to suicide. I nearly did in my late teens. I've talked about this on the channel. Um, could have, yeah, like my father, gone down the path of addiction. My father basically drank himself to death. Could have ended up with, many different forms of chronic illness, dangerous promiscuity, lots of different ways I could have self-destructed. And I didn't choose that path. I don't know why. I definitely courted danger, and lived on adrenaline for a long time, whether it's through hitchhiking, riding freight trains, or getting really into the very addictive training for pushing my body really hard into, my years as a multi-sport adventure racer, mountain bike racer, road racer at a high level, but that probably saved me in some ways, even though there was a shadow side to all that, the running away from what I couldn't face. But I'm just grateful. My point is that I could have chosen to self-destruct and I didn't. Nearly so. But certainly that's far, far behind me. I don't have any of that in me anymore. And I'm just blessed, to still be here, to be able to speak about this, even though I've been emotional today, pretty even terms, I no longer think that I'm going mad. So take this all as inspiration. And by the way, too, what's come through is like, I know this is all true and real now. So yes, the writing of a book becomes much more front and center in my life. And my mother's the only remaining perpetrator close to home, so to speak, that's still alive. And I don't know how much longer she will be here. So just by way of saying, it becomes safe to tell this story and even to publish it. Oh, look out. So in a way, my path has begun. It's taking me in new directions. For you, what are the takeaways? Everything's possible. Nothing is off the table. And don't dismiss your own story just because it might seem too radical, impossible, or deeply disturbing. Keep going. And I'm here to lend support if you need it. Book a session or a series with me and we can dive into what's, to get support for you and start some healing and connect the dots for you. That's part of my purpose in this world, very clearly. And when the unexpected arrives for you, I would say, know that you're resourced on some deep level to abide within that unexpected moment, even if it's completely shocking. We all came here as very strong souls to up the ante on this earth. That's what we're doing here. That's why we're chatting tonight. That's why I've revealed this in such granular detail. Yeah. Facing the truth is sometimes the hardest thing we'll ever do, and also the most liberating. And as I've said, we do it not just for us, but for the collective. That's how this is all operating. It can't be any other way. My healing is your healing, and vice versa. Yeah. In restoring innocence, I feel like something in my own world is happening along those lines. It's hard to describe. But when we reclaim our most harrowing experiences from the depths and from the vault and from all the things, all the places we hide out, so we're not looking at these things, because they're tough, let's face it, they're terribly tough. They're like next level 10 out of 10 tough in some cases. Like turning toward the darkness, we find the light. I think I've said that in many variety of ways here on the channel tonight. The personal becomes planetary, and as a result, all of us are freed. And we're freeing children that have died. Whenever I do healing sessions, it always comes through that the work you're doing, like for an example, like with somebody who's, you know, healing from occult abuse, the work that they're doing travels forwards and back through the bloodline. So it affects the past as well as the future and the now. Again, a really big win-win. As Mother has said, my mother from my lifetime with the Crow people, you guys know her, I've mentioned her on the channel, Mother and Father. I mentioned Father about an hour back here. She always says we all hold the wound. And this is ever more salient. You know, if this is something that's happened to you, to us, to me, kind of all scarred by that, but at the same time, as we gather the light becomes all of us. We are that light. Wow. I'm so glad I've been able to journey with you all through this and for you being here with me. There's healing light emanating from all of us right now. So if you'd like, you know, and if you want to transform your wounds into wisdom, I'm here for sessions related to inner child integration, quantum healing, starseed coaching. Tap into your gifts and use them. We're here for that. Soul council sessions, mentoring, and Akashic readings, galactic attunements, and more. Those are linked below. And for all the children within us, children that are here now, here and gone, galactic children, children waiting to be born, children who have died, passed on. Just a field of heart love encircling all of this. Thank you so much. I will post the soft white underbelly video when it is published on Mark's channel in my playlist, so you can check back for it. And if you're not on my mailing list, get on it because I will send it out to all you guys. What a pleasure to be with you. Just to mention this briefly, I have a mother and father from a previous lifetime, Indigenous mother and father, and I just call them simply mother and father. They've been with me every day for about 2.5 years. They were my parents from a previous lifetime with the Crow people, and they've helped me heal so much. They've done soul retrieval work for me. They helped me journey to get parts back. And that's actually ongoing, like even today. I was working with them this morning. And their love is so beautifully unconditional.